Hello there, good afternoon everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's webinar. My name's Jackie, and today we're going to be looking at how to produce service invoices and some of the relevant settings around service invoicing as well. So today's session shouldn't be as long as other sessions. It may just take us around half an hour for today's content. On hand, we have Michael, who's available to answer any questions. So if you do have any questions throughout today's session, please do make sure that you get those sent across to the team today, and we'll get those answered for you. Now, before we begin, as normal, we'll just do some housekeeping to begin with, just in case this is your first time joining us on a webinar. So we are using GoToWebinar, which means that you will be placed on mute as one of our delegates. So if you do see that your microphone is in red with the line through it, please don't be alarmed. It does just mean that you won't be able to speak to us directly verbally. Any questions will need to be sent over via the questions panel. It won't impact your ability to hear us. So if you do find that you're having any sound issues, please do try disconnecting, reconnecting to the webinar. That should hopefully resolve them. If not, do check your speaker or headphone settings. If you do have a question though for myself or Michael, please, today we are looking at invoicing. So anything around invoicing, you're more than welcome to answer. Sorry to ask. We will try and cover those first before we answer any other questions that you may have as well. So to do that, you need to use the icon that looks like a speech bubble with the question mark in the middle, and that will open up the questions panel for you to type your questions across to the team there. There is also a handout for today. So we have put a handout together showing you some of the screens that we're going to show you throughout today's demonstration today as well. So please do, if you want a copy of that, make sure that you take a copy during the session today there as well. Now, in addition, today we're just looking at service invoicing, okay? Now, later on this week, on Thursday, Michael will be looking at product invoicing. So there is two forms of invoicing. This is to highlight one of the options. So if you are wanting to look at the other side of it with products, we won't cover that today, but we will cover that on Thursday afternoon for you. So please do, again, get yourself signed up for that session if you want to know about both sides of the invoicing feature. Before we begin though, I do have a quick contents page and then a quick poll for you as well today. But what we're going to cover today, we're going to do that poll first of all, just to find out who's actually using the invoicing feature at the moment. And then we'll talk about what a service invoice is and why you would use a service invoice before looking at the settings and then running through from start to finish how to enter a service invoice as well. And we'll pick up any questions along the way, and where possible, we'll try and demonstrate those during the session for you as well. Okay, so time for a little bit of input from yourselves there. Like I said, we're just going to do a really quick poll first. And what I would like to know is whether or not you're currently using the invoicing feature at all. Okay, so there should be a poll making its way to your screens. There is sometimes a slight delay here, so it doesn't make its way over in the next couple of seconds. It will do. I think it's around 20-second delay there. So we just want to know if you're using the feature already, or if it's something that you haven't used before. And don't worry if you're not sure, there is the option to say that you're not sure on there as well. Okay, so I normally like to wait till around 70% of you have voted. And we've just hit the mark there. Okay, so the majority of you today are using the module. We've got around 58% there and around 42 of you saying no. So thank you very much for that. That just gives us a little bit of insight into how our customers are using the software and what kind of things you're looking for as well. So thank you very much. Don't worry if you didn't manage to pop your answer in there. We certainly don't hold it against you on these sessions. So I'm just going to close the poll down there. Thank you very much to everyone. Great to see questions are coming through already, so please do keep Michael busy. You don't need to wait till the end of the session for your questions. Do get them across to us as soon as they come to you so we can get all of them answered for you today. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a little bit of theory first of all, talking about what a service invoice is and also why would we use a service invoice, trying to put that into context for you. So a service invoice is an invoice which allows you to put in a verbatim description. Okay, so it's particularly useful if you've got a really long description, really in detail, and you want all of that information to appear on the invoice. It also doesn't link into the products and services module. So quite a while ago, we had some changes around CIS, domestic reverse charge. And on a lot of those calls, we asked customers why they weren't using the service invoice module. The invoice module. And the reason was that they weren't using products and services. So many people aren't aware that you can actually create a service invoice even if you're not using products and services. It can also be used alongside product invoices. So if you do want to use a service invoice, you can still use product invoicing as well. And I'll show you that in the demonstration a little bit later on. So why would I want to use a service invoice? So it could be that you've got a bespoke invoice. It might be a one-off where there's a lot of detail in particular, where you want all of that detail on the invoice. Or like I said, it might just be a one-off where it doesn't link into the products module. So you don't really want it to link into stock. And you just want to be able to free type onto the invoice what is covered by that invoice. So also, if you don't want to record any stock movements in or out, you can use a service invoice. And also, you can use a service invoice when you're invoicing for a project. So if you do use the projects feature and you want to invoice for the overall project, or it could be an interim payment on a project, then a service invoice would allow you to achieve that as well. Now, don't worry, we're going to show you all of this in the demonstration today. But first of all, we're going to go in and just show you some of the settings in the software there. Now, just bear with me 1 second. What we're just going to do is I'm just going to flip onto our data set. So just bear with me there and we'll just switch over. And again, great to see some questions coming through there. So bear with me, just had to switch over screens today. So we're working a bit back to front at this end. And that should be us back into my data set there. Okay, so service invoices can be located in exactly the same place as your normal product invoices. So as you can see there, I'm in the invoices and credits module, and this is where the service invoices can be created. So first of all, I do want to just show you some settings, okay? But to show you one of the settings, I want to highlight what normally puts people off the invoicing feature. So I'm just going to clear here so I don't have any invoices highlighted. And I'm just going to go into new invoice. And immediately by default, when we open up a new invoice, it immediately by default always picks up a product invoice. Now at that point, people do tend to think this isn't really for me, it's linking into products and I don't want it to. And at that point, they find an alternative for their invoicing. But what we do have the option to do is to change this across to a service invoice. So at the moment, when it's a product invoice, immediately it's asking you for a product code. But if we change this over to service, you can see that the format has changed very subtly, but it's no longer asking me for a product code. Within here, this is where I can free type the details of my invoice. Now, we're all about saving time and making things work quicker for us. So I may just want to open up and immediately be presented with a service invoice. So this is where one of the settings comes in for you. So I'm going to close out of this invoice and say no to changes. And I just want to pop into settings and then into invoice and order defaults. And within here, we can configure it more to our requirements. So first of all, on the general tab within here, you can see I've got some options here all relating to invoicing, but I'm just going to go down to this first section, the second section here, where it asks me for my default invoice format. Now, like I say, at default, by default, it will select product invoice, but I can change that to service invoice if I know that I'm more likely to do service invoices. The same with credits. So if I want to create credits that are service credits, again, I can just change that default over. There are other features in here as well, which are particularly useful. So I'm just going to pop into the options tab. If you're using invoicing already elsewhere, so you might have a system already in place, it's likely you're not going to start your invoices on number 1. So if you are up to a certain number on your current system and want to start using Sage, say from today, then you could put in a different number in here for your invoices start from. And that would just make sure that your invoice numbers continue on from your current system. The same with your credits. And again, this can be applied to things like sales orders and purchase orders as well, if need be. So those settings are held within invoice and order defaults. Great question has just come through there around, can you add company logo and bank payment details to the invoice? Yes, you can. It won't be covered in this session because we have done a whole session alone on adding details. So Michael will probably give you a link to the recordings so you can locate that session. But yes, even on a service invoice, you can add your company logo and bank details on there, again, to help you get paid a little bit quicker. So I'm just going to say OK to that. That's our settings all configured for invoices and credits. So I'm going to pop back into my invoices and credits module. And now if I create a new invoice, you can see by default, it's automatically popped in service in the format. Now, it's not to say I couldn't change this back to products. So if I was using the products module, I can change it back and revert to a product. So I can have both running concurrently in my products, in my invoice list. Okay, so I'm just going to go back to a previous one, okay, that I created earlier, just so I can demonstrate how much detail you can pop into there. So I'm just going to go into number 2 in my list that like I said, created earlier, and just wait for that to load up. Okay, so once we've popped in the format, the date would normally pick up today's date that you're in the software. Obviously, I created this last week, so you can see the dates picked up there. And you would also select your company details using the A/C option. Now, they're grayed out at the moment because this particular one is posted, but I will show you one from scratch in just a second. But I just wanted to show you the amount of detail you can pop onto these invoices. Also, when you select a customer record, automatically it starts to populate the invoice. So over here, you can see it's picking up the details from that particular customer automatically. However, as you can see in my details, I've got quite a lengthy description. So if I click on here, you can see I've popped a lot of detail in there, all of which can be pulled through onto the printed invoice for you. So it's not as restricted as the product invoicing module is. I'm just going to close that one. I'll show you how we can pop one in from scratch and pop lots of information in. So again, just to enter one, I'm just going to clear. I'm going to go into new invoice. And like you say there, it's just picked up service for me. I'm going to select my customer. So I'm going to pick one of these here. And as you can see, once I select the customer, it automatically populates with that customer's details for me. So I don't need to pop those in. What I can do though is if I want to add any additional information like an order number, I can pop that in here. And I also have the option for customer order number as well. Again, these are being requested by customers to add additional numbers on there. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to build up this invoice to show you how this works from start to finish. So I've clicked into the details tab, and what you can see at the very end of that details tab is a tiny little icon here. It's a tiny little arrow, believe me it is. Now we can't access that just yet. So normally on a product invoice, you can access it straight away once you've selected the product. But what we need to do is we need to start typing some details in here first. So I'm just going to pop in a little bit of a bait and comment. Try and put as much detail on as possible. Now, I won't keep you too long with my terrible typing, but as you can see there, now we've popped in some details, and if I click on the icon at the end, it now opens up the edit item line. So within here, what I can start to pop in is things like the item price, and I can also change the posting details. So if I know exactly which nominal code that needs to be posted to, I can change that over for here. So I'm just going to pop it on soft drink sales, and the tax code as well. So if I know what tax code I want to apply, this can be changed within here. So that's within that tiny arrow that opens the edit item line window. Can also pick a different department to post it to. And as you can see at the bottom, we also have a project reference. So if I was invoicing for an overall project, I could link this into a project if I've got projects set up on there. But I'm happy with everything in here. If I wanted to add more details in here, I could. I can fill this box. It allows me a lot of information on there. And I'm just going to click on OK because I'm happy with the posting details on there. Now I can go on to add multiple lines, so I could add more on there as well, and again I can add as much information as I need to for that invoice, but for the sake of this session today I'm just going to save that as that is at the moment. So it's very similar to how you would enter a product invoice. It just gives you that ability to free type into the details box. And as you can see there, I just added that to my list. Now at the moment, if we were to update this one to the ledgers, not only would it not update because it's got no value in there, just pop a quick value in there and save. At the moment, if I look at that particular customer record, what I will notice is that there isn't an invoice showing on their activity at present, okay? So creating the invoice alone, all that does is it pops it into my invoice list. In order for this to be reflected on my customer record and also on my VAT return and all of my nominal ledger, nominal codes, I would need to update this to the ledgers. So just to show you an example there, if I just pop into this record for the Canon, find their record, and into activity, what you should see there, the last dated transaction was actually from the end of May. Okay, so I don't have a transaction from today just yet. What we need to do, and this is exactly the same for product invoices, is we need to mark it as updated to ledgers. Okay, so regardless of whether it's product or service invoice, to make it be reflected on the customer record, we need to update ledgers. Now, for the sake of today, again, I'm just going to do it for this single invoice rather than all of them. And what that will do is, if you're familiar with batch invoicing, is it will create the batch invoice for you. What it won't do is log any stock in or out of your software because it's not accounting for any stock. So that's the difference between the service invoice and a product invoice, because a product invoice would start to move stock and do stock transactions for you. So if I update the ledgers, then what we should see is that we're going to have one batch invoice entered onto that customer record, and that will then be picked up by things like the VAT return and the nominal details, etc. Okay, so the key differences with a service invoice is it allows you to pop a lot more detail on, and it doesn't link into your products module, but also allows you to print that detail when you're sending that out to your customers. Now, again, to demonstrate this one, I'm going to go back to my original one. So that's invoice number 2, which had a really lot of information on there. It had a lot more information than we've just demonstrated there, just so I can show you how that pulls through. So I'm just going to open up this one again, just to remind you of what that looked like as the service invoice. So you can see we've got some wedding stationery on there. Try to put as much information on there as possible. So it's got things like the delivery addresses, etc. And what we can do then is we can go to print. So we can go to print within this window here, but we also have the option to print at the top here as well if we wish to do so. So I'm just going to go into print, and within here, we go into layouts. You can see that there is a whole heap of options there for you, or there should be. There we go, waiting for them to load. So you do have a choice of layouts. You don't have to use one specific one. You use the one that suits you. And from there, once you've got one in mind, you can then start to add things like text boxes to include your bank details. And you can easily add your logo on there as well. Now I've just picked one out. I'm just going to pick one of the easy ones, one of the ones that are most popular, the plain paper ones, just to show you what this looks like once we select to print. So I'm just going to make sure that we preview. And as you can see there, when we go to print, you can see the full description is now showing on the invoice there. And as my example shows you there, it shows you dates, locations, etc., everything that I've popped into the description. So this tends to be really useful for businesses who do bespoke packages. We've had a lot of people in the construction industry where they're actually invoicing for an entire project and want to give more detail on the project. And really it's up to you whether or not this is going to work for you better than the products and services option. Okay, it's entirely up to you and your choice. Okay, there's no right or wrong usage of this. So once we've printed, then it should be marked as printed within the invoices and credits window. One thing to note that I mentioned earlier is it is possible to use both. Okay, so you might have one side of the business deals with stock, but you might have one-off situations where you need to do a service invoice, or it might be half and half, and it is possible to do both. As you can see, I've got my service invoices held within here, and the type column, it says SRV for service invoice, and anything with INV, that is a product invoice. So if you can't decide, then you can use both, but you would need to be using the product module for that one to work. In addition, we do also have the option to do credit notes as well. So if you do a credit, again, you can do a service credit, and it can also be a product credit as well. So again, it can chop and change between which ones you want. So next thing I just wanted to point out to you, like I said, this is a slightly shorter session because we've split invoicing into 2 separate sessions, is the ability to also create a quotation as a service quotation. So I don't know if many of you have come across the quotations or if you use the quotations module, but we do have quotations on the left-hand side. And within here, this is where we can create a quote. So again, very, very useful in certain industries. Again, I'm going to refer to construction industry as an example. It's something I've had a lot of experience with in the past. So within the construction industry, you may want to be issuing a quotation. The same would probably go for the wedding situation as well. You'd want to do a quote for the wedding stationery. So within here, we can create a quotation. And the format is exactly the same. It looks very much like the invoice itself. And again, this can be a product quotation or a service quotation. I'm going to leave it as service because products will be covered by Michael on Thursday. And it's exactly the same situation. So we can select our customer, pop in our details. Oops, sorry. And I'm just going to pop in some details. So as little as much or as much as you like. And again, just remember to go into edit item line. That allows us to pop the details in there. And if we save, now what this will do is it will sit within my quotations window in a status of open until I mark it as won or lost. Okay, so nothing happens on the invoicing on the customer side on their activity, but it will show in the invoices and credits within here. And as you can see, this one is marked as an SQT, so that's a service quote. Okay, if you did a product invoice, it would be a QTE type. Okay, so that's where the different types come from. It does get a little bit complicated there on the types. Now at the moment, I can't do anything with that from the invoices and credits window because it's not yet marked as one. Okay, but if my customer did come back to me and say, yes, I would like to proceed and go ahead with this, please issue me with an invoice, I can go back to quotations, and then I have the ability to mark it as one, which then converts it from a quotation into a service invoice for me. So that tends to be quite common or commonly used around the service invoice feature because of the industries that may get to use that. Really good questions coming through there, which I'm more than happy to pick up there, is can you email these invoices direct to customers? Yes, you can, okay, and this should make life a lot easier for you once you've got this up and running. So I'm just going to pop back into my invoices and credits just to finish off showing you there, this one, but then I will come back to that in just a second. So I'm just going to pop back into my invoices and credits, and what was previously an SQT, a service quote, has now been won, and now it shows as a service invoice or an SRV. Okay, so you can see that there's the options there. Now the question there was around emailing. Okay, so yes, it is possible to email it to your customers. The first thing you'll need to do with your customers is those that you want to email the invoices to, you will need to go into their record. I'm just going to pick one out. Slightly so today, apologies. And in their records, you will need to pop their email address in. And it doesn't matter which one you use, but be consistent. If you know you're going to email your customers, always use the same email field. So either always use email 1 or email 2 or email 3. So don't mix and match. Okay. So if you're going to be emailing your customers and I want to send this out, I'm just going to pop it into mine. You'd pop their email address on and save. Okay, so yes, that can be a little bit time consuming if you don't already have those details in particular if you've got a lot of customers. Okay, but once you've got this up and running, it can be sent out straight from Sage, which will make your life much easier. What you then need to do though is go into settings and then email defaults. And within here, you do need to do some configuring for your email provider. Okay, now if you're using Outlook and it's connected up on your system, which might need a little bit of work from your IT and a little bit of investigation using our help center. But if you're using Outlook, then you can leave it as Outlook, but you can change it to webmail. So you could change it to Gmail, it may be another account you've got elsewhere, Hotmail account. There are some options here. If it's not on the list, you can select other, but what you will need to do is get your SMTP settings. Okay, again, there's more information on that on our help center. Okay, so please do check out the help center on how to get those SMTP settings. But I'm going to just change mine back to Outlook, which means I don't have any of these other boxes to fill in. And what I can then do is go into my Invoices tab, and I can instruct Sage on what to do when I need to email out to my customer. So immediately, it's going to send it out to customer record email 1. So I've already popped an email address in there. I can pop a CC in if I want to copy in one of my colleagues or one of their colleagues. And I can also pop in a subject. So I'm just going to pop in this one here. So there's a couple of preempted ones. You can manually enter your own if you need to. What it will then do is it will try and send it as a PDF with the file name, which will be the invoice number that's relevant to the invoice I'm sending. And at the bottom, I do have the option to save to mailbox or send immediately. Okay, once you've done this, so I'm going to save to mailbox for now, you then need to apply it to the layout that you're using. Okay, so this is where you might need to do a bit of digging as to which one is your actual invoice layout. Don't apply it to them all, because if you apply it to them all, it will take quite some time to apply those settings. So I'm just going to pick the one or the two that I commonly use, and that will apply those settings for you. Now, again, I am going through this quickly because this is just a little add-on for you, but there are lots of videos online that will go through this for you. Okay. Now, what this means is now I've configured those two layouts. I can email those straight out from my software. At the moment, it will go via my mailbox first, so I can log in to my email and check them first before I forward them on. But like I say, you can set them to go straight out to your customer. Now to do that, we go into email. Now I haven't picked a default for this one yet. I'll just go back to print for the time being. Select the one that I'm using, and then I can use the option to email. Okay. And if it's configured, which it might not be because this isn't the one I set it up to, it will go straight out from the software. So once you have set that up, it might be an investment of time to get it up and running. As you can see there, it has actually successfully output to my email, and that will be sent out straight away. So it will make life a lot easier once you've got that up and running. Okay, so I'm just going to pop back to the PowerPoint for a moment. Get back towards the end there. And just start a little summary there for you. There we go, back up and running. So some great questions coming through there. So keep them coming. If you've got any, please do. Michael's been kept nice and busy. So just wanted to summarize. So service invoices are great for bespoke invoices or anything where you've got a really lengthy description where you want to put lots of detail into that invoice. They don't at all link into products and services. So if products and services isn't for you, then you can use the service invoice feature instead. That means there's no movement of stock. So if you do have any stock, it won't impact those stock records by using the service invoice. You can use both. So you can use both service and product invoices. They'll sit in the same list, but you can only set up one default. So you'll need to pick which one you're going to use most heavily. Remember, quotations can be used also, and you can create those as a service invoice as well. And if you're going to use projects, if you're using projects at all, when you come to invoice at the end of that process, then it would be a service invoice that you use. It allows you to link it into the project to show the amount that has been billed on there. Okay, so just a quick chat about upcoming webinars. So tomorrow, we're going to be looking at Chase Debt View. Okay, so if you've ever wondered about getting more around how to chase your customers, how to view your oldest invoices, how to chase payments, then Michael tomorrow will be going through the Chase Debt View function tomorrow at 2 o'clock. So if you're interested in that, please do check out the Help Centre that I'll show you in just a moment, and you can sign up for that session tomorrow at 2 p.m. In addition, the second half of the session, entering product invoices, is going to be on Thursday. So if you're still weighing up which one's going to work best for you, that's probably a really good one to come to as well. It allows you to compare the two systems to see which one's going to work for you. That one links into stock, so we'll be showing you how you can use invoices to do your stock in and out. In the meantime, as well, you also have access to a Sage membership. Okay, so if you're one of our customers, you've got Sage cover with us, then you have a membership with us. This allows you to access a multitude of items online. So things like Sage University, where we have free learning for you. We also have Sage City, which is a great place for forums, blogs, and also for submitting your ideas. And also at the moment, we also are giving you access to Sage Masterclasses. So these Masterclasses are designed, they've got lots of businesses around the world who are joined together to provide us with some Masterclasses. The current one is all around talent, so finding and keeping the right people. So we've got lots of people chatting on there around onboarding experiences, how to nurture talent, and also how to retain your talent. So that's season 1. Upcoming, we do have season 2, which is coming in October. So there will be more content on there from October for you as well. So if you're interested, again, that is free of charge. You're able to access that on sage.com/UK/masterclass. Okay, so just before we go, I do want to just pop back onto the system there just to show you where you can find our future webinars. So if you do want to sign up for tomorrow's session, or if you want to join us on the product invoices, we'll show you where you can do that. Bear with me again 1 second. Okay, so if you log into your software and go into Help and then Help Center, this launches the Help Center for you. Immediately, it will log you into Sage 50 Cloud accounts because that's where you've linked in from. And all you need to do in here is type in the word webinars. And in here, it will show you a list of recordings of previous sessions, but also we've got the live sessions that are upcoming. So if you are interested in that session tomorrow or the one on Thursday, then you can find the links from here. In addition, you can type anything like emailing invoices, because like I said, there's a lot of differences depending on who your email provider is, etc. This will give you information based on your particular situation. So in here, you've got the option to email documents, and that will give you guidance on there. So if you do want to do that, please do check out the Help Center for more information on there. Okay, so time for any remaining questions. So please do get them across there. I think Michael is on top of them so far, but if there's any final questions, please do get those submitted across to us. And like I say, if we can, we'll try and demonstrate them for you. So good question that I will just demonstrate. It has already been answered there. Is what if a quote isn't won? Is it deleted off the system and doesn't use an invoice? So no, a quote will actually stay in the software as an unwon quote. So if someone did come back down the line and say, actually, I've changed my mind, I do want to take you up on that offer, then you would be able to reopen that quote. Okay, so it won't delete it. It will still take up the invoice number. It is possible, though, if it's not been one, for you to just delete it from the list. Okay, so that's a really good one regarding quotes there. Okay, so we're going to pop ourselves on mute for a moment or two, just while any final questions do come across. If you are leaving us, though, thank you very much for joining us. We hope to see you again tomorrow or Thursday for our future session. In the meantime, I'll pop myself on mute, but take care if you are leaving us for now. Okay, all quiet on the question front there, so we'll look to end the session. So again, thank you very much for joining us today, and we hope to see you later on this week. If not, like I say, on a future session, you're more than welcome to join us again. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you again soon.